I keep trying. That's right. I keep ticking. I know it should work, and it should be in the top right-hand corner, but it's actually not.
Hmm.
Maybe it's somewhere else. It's down the bottom. Sorry, Rod, I can't find it.
Yeah, we are kind of online now.
Okay, that's kind.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Academy of Astrology UK live stream podcast. I'm Rod. Today I'm with Mandy and Sue. Unfortunately, today Marcus had something, so he couldn't be here this week, but he will come back next week, and we're really looking forward. So today we have a lot, like as usual. We always have a lot of things to talk about. So, um, comes to my mind is I think I've been hit by this transit very kind of heavily. So I was before we start, I did ask Mandy and Sue, do they feel that? And I think thank God they all feel the same thing. So I really happy. I really feel relief about this. Is like our main subject today. One of our main subject today is the Mars Pluto opposition on the 26-degree Capricorn, and Mars is in end of the Cancer. So how does this aspect affect us? And we can say from mountain level to the individual level. So I'd like to invite Mandy first, because Mandy has some interesting observation.
Oh, yeah, Mars Pluto. I mean, when you think about Mars Pluto, whether it's a moving transit in the sky or Mars Pluto aspect in a chart, in a birth chart, or a chart for a country, or a chart for an event, you kind of think about heavy energy.
Yes.
And it is quite a heavy energy. It's very intense. And I'll just talk through a couple of the themes, and obviously we'll all have something else to say, so we can share out these heavy themes between us. But one of the things that I think Mars and Pluto have in common is they're both in some senses to do with survival. So Mars, for example, is you associate Mars with tangible survival, sort of how you defend yourself, how you assert yourself, how you look after yourself, how you fight when you need to. And Pluto is also about survival. It's about survival on a much deeper level, though. I think it even goes to the point of sort of psychic and soul survival. So you've got that kind of heavy energy, like, can I survive this emotionally? Can I survive this psychologically? Whereas Mars is, can I survive, life and stay alive? And I think coming into just riffing on the idea of survival, they both sort of relate to how we defend ourselves and our defenses. So, for example, you could say Mars, has something to do with the idea of fight or flight or freeze, for example.
Yes.
Do you
wow.
fight? Do you run away? Do you do nothing?
Yes.
Whereas Pluto, the same, but it goes a little bit deeper. I've put for Pluto, really, it's fight, flight, hide, bury, repress, and deny. So you have those psychological defenses coming in a lot more, I think, when you get Mars Pluto. So these are a few things to look out for in the next couple of days or so, the next 2 or 3 days or so, with this Mars Pluto opposition in the sky. And it's an opposition, so potentially it's to do with the relationships and opposition between people. So it's a difficult energy, and it's one to watch.
Yeah. Wow. That's so rich. Thank you, Mandy. Sue, what's your view about this Mars Pluto opposition?
Sure. Well, technically it's only around for 3 days, but actually it's an annular solar eclipse, which means you get a ring of light around it. You won't see it in England. It's in Canada and parts of America.
Sue. Hey, we're talking about Mars. Have I asked the wrong question? I think it's Mercury retrograde, so I should clarify.
Sorry, what are you asking?
The Mars Pluto opposition, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm talking about the solar eclipse. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's why.
Sorry. Okay.
That's okay.
No, I'll talk about Mars Pluto, which is what I was asked to talk about. Sorry about that.
Oh, but you are so concentrated on it. I say, should I stop you?
No, absolutely right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Mandy, I completely agree with you. It's a pretty hefty transit. When Mars, the god of war, and Pluto, the god of the underworld, clash together or come together in opposition, pushing against each other, you're going to get explosions, you're going to get fireworks somewhere down the line. So I imagine that somewhere in the world, I'm not exactly sure where, but there's a few hot spots just now, that might actually be a bit of an explosion or something coming together or something like that, where there's this clashing of forces, and people kind of pushing against each other, disagreeing, you know, maybe violently disagreeing, because Pluto and Mars are particularly to do with violence, or can be, right?
Yeah.
It's all to do with fighting for your life. It's like survival, exactly what Mandy said. It's about survival, you know, surviving the nature of the times. If the times are difficult, then you might have a bit of a hard time for the next few days, or country might have quite a hard time, actually. If you know your own chart at all, if you look at your Mars, where Mars is in your chart, or any other planets, actually, any other planets towards the end of Cancer will be affected by this Mars-Pluto opposition, because it falls technically as about 8 degree 26. But you know, it's more likely to affect you, which means doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have violence in your life. I don't mean that. I don't want to scare you, right? But that you may feel that you need to fight for something, or you need to kind of protest your situation, or you're feeling a bit kind of like you want to kind of you know, be a bit fisty, not physically, but to actually assert yourself quite clearly. That might be something that you're experiencing in the next 2 or 3 days. Okay. So
yeah, while Sue talking about it, I try to remember any particular theme happened around this time, especially a huge international event. But I really couldn't get something in that, you know, in that way. Usually we would think about the huge riots or massive explosion, something like that. But I couldn't see it. How about you, Mandy? Have you noticed anything?
I did actually notice something on the UK news this morning.
Yes.
They were sorry, not this morning, this evening, just literally just as I was eating before I came to do this.
Yeah.
They actually had a slot in the news about how much knife crime there has been, and of course Mars is about knives, and they showed clips of all these different, you know, because people video everything these days, clips of all these knife crimes and people attacking each other and hurting each other and even killing each other with knives. And there was one in particular that really struck me. It was you know, a guy just basically running around with a huge giant machete. This was, I think, in London or somewhere in the UK. So you might not see in you know, when we're talking about events in the world, you might not see, for example, a big knife crime or a big stabbing or whatever it is, like, you know, some horrible event on the day of, you know, the actual, you know, opposition itself, when it's exact. But you might see reflections in the news reports, such as we had today, that it's become an issue. So knife crime, for example, and killings on the street in broad daylight, a lot of them becomes an issue in the news. So that's worth watching out for. Any of the things we talked about, really watch out in the news the next few days.
Yeah, because as you mentioned about life and the fight and the fly, this kind of situation, I think when you face that kind of situation, that is like our animal instinct will jump out to like make a very quick decision. Either you fight back, or either you to help yourself to survive and run away. I think, yes, when you mentioned that, I suddenly realized, yes, that's right. It's not just like always thinking about like huge violence and huge crises, but that is part of it too. Yeah, that is part of it. Well,
Mars
I have
in Cancer.
Yeah, Mars in Cancer.
Yes. Mars in Cancer is more likely, it's probably more likely to want to sort of like run away or hide, and you know, it's a different energy, isn't it? It's a difficult energy, perhaps sometimes
it's
for
not
Mars.
Always, it's not always overtly aggressive, is it?
Oh, yes.
It's not always obvious.
Yes.
It's about the feelings, there's feelings of anger or resentment or something that are going on underneath. You might be stirring what you're actually feeling, you know, or you might be sort of a bit more kind of inclined to object to something than you might have been on another time. That just the energy of the opposition is around at the present time. That's all. which may be affecting you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I think, do you have any planet near the end of a cardinal sign?
Not me,
No,
no.
no, no, Mandy.
Not me.
Sue?
I haven't either.
Oh,
Everything's
okay.
chill
I'm the
in my
lucky
world.
one. I'm the lucky one. I do have my
You're
Jupiter.
lucky Rod.
Oh God, no, don't mention about that because I was like a kind of for last couple of days, kind of a busy and with work and some planning slightly changed, so I have to work on it. But one thing is very interesting is suddenly just like some political argument suddenly wind me up. I usually kind of I don't want to talk about that with too much, but suddenly that make me so upset and so angry from nowhere. From nowhere. And then suddenly I realized because that is the Pluto on my Jupiter and opposite by Mars. So there's anger there building up, and then suddenly triggered by just tiny little things. And I was so upset. I was really so upset. And then that day I was just like, fine, I want to quit all the social media, that kind of idea. Well, eventually, I think again, it's like, why are you so angry? That is kind of Mars things, very emotional, suddenly very powerful. Yeah.
It's sort of illogical, really.
Oh, there's no logical. Definitely, there's no logical behind. It's just like why they can do this. And even if I'm Aquarius, so I try to exercise that kind of a sun in Aquarius way to try to rationalize. I couldn't. It doesn't work. I have to go with the, like you said, Cancer. So it's more like a water signs. Go with feeling.
Right. It is a water sign.
Go with feeling and go with like, it's not everything rational. Then I can easily, slowly to, cool it down, not that angry. And that helps a little bit. That helps a tiny little bit. Yes. Yeah, so this, sorry. No, it's okay. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Mars, where Mars is at the moment is in the sign of Cancer, which of course is a water sign. And Mars in Cancer is not obviously overtly aggressive. It's more inclined to approach things sideways, right, rather than dead on, right? Okay. It's more natural for Mars in Cancer than Mars in any other signs, right? Okay. So you may find, obviously, depending whether it connects to your chart particularly or not, you may find that you're not feeling overtly aggressive, but just kind of something's bothering you underneath. You want to try and get to the truth of something. You want to try and understand the meaning of something, but it can be quite elusive and difficult for you to get hold of. But you're aware you feel out of sorts. You don't feel quite right. And that's the effect of Mars, I think, especially when it's touching Pluto. Because Pluto is such a powerful planet, long distance away, but very powerful, right? And it just exacerbates, it exaggerates Mars, I think, the energy of it. So so do look at your own chart to see if you've got something at the end of the cardinal signs.
Yes, indeed. Yes, and we can see. So the next important. So, Mandy, do you have anything to add?
I was just going to say. I guess you could say that Mars in Cancer is like, perhaps more of the passive aggressive response. As Sue was describing. Before we quickly move on to the eclipse, just as we've been thinking about something else that I saw on the news. Hopefully this is a bit lighter and a bit funnier. So as some countries might know, it's the G7 summit at the moment, where a number of countries get together for meetings to, I'm not sure what the topic is this time around, but it's happening anyway in Cornwall in England. They showed our health secretary, the guy who's been in charge of the pandemic response. They showed a shot of him on the news with a bunch of other people. It turns out it was the health secretaries from the other countries that are involved. So senior top politicians been dealing with the pandemic. And they all had, and just I saw this shot, and they all had a shovel in their hands. They were spaced out, but they all had a shovel in their hands. Yeah, and they were like shoveling earth into the ground.
Yeah.
And it turns out it was a tree planting ceremony, but it looked at the first eye, and my husband saw it and said exactly the same. It looked like they were burying dead bodies or something. And I thought, well, that's Mars Pluto having a laugh, really. You know,
I
it's
think
just
so.
it's so inappropriate. And my husband even said there'll probably be a load of like joke tweets and memes about this shot.
I agree. That's one side of a Pluto, to be honest. I mean, couple years ago, I remember it was I think is Carol Taylor. She gave a talk, astrology Carol Taylor. She gave a talk during the AA conference about Pluto and irony.
Yeah.
And that is when you mentioned about, I suddenly remember, yeah, Pluto could be, some people think about the scary, crisis, cruel, and death or life-death crisis, but there is a part of a irony there, kind of a dark humor, like you say, like that is a dark humor, like they are burying someone, but indeed they are doing the planting tree things. But when you look at it, it's like they are all together, all the health secretary bury someone. It's like, oh dear.
Yeah, responsible for the pandemic response, as we know, sadly.
Oh yes,
people,
to be honest, yes.
It's the thing I thought when I saw Matt Hancock digging that hole.
digging that hole.
Very inappropriate clothing for digging the ground.
Digging the hole. Digging the hole is also Pluto.
That's out of sync, you know. It's like not kind of attuned to the times somehow.
Definitely.
Digging the hole is also Pluto thing. So that's so interesting. I mean, that's how I really like astrology, because sometimes it could be literally, you know, sometimes it could be very literally, and irony and very subtle hints if you spend your time if you know enough about the planet and how they manifested in our everyday life. And that was so interesting. We can talk about this on and on and on, never stop. But we have changed the subject, because most important is next Thursday, 10th of June, we have another. We have a solar eclipse going to happen.
Yes, this is true.
And
another eclipse.
another. Well, we have. I think when we mention another, I'll hand this to Sue. Let Sue start talking about, you know, there's some basic idea about solar eclipse, because she was beginning and I stopped it.
Yeah. No, that's very true. Well, I was particularly struck by this particular solar eclipse on the 10th of June. Because it's in Gemini, and I do find that eclipses or major turning points in Gemini sometimes are completely important and relevant, because they're usually about, you know, the nature of the mental inspiration that may be occurring, what kinds of ideas and thoughts may be coming in or being brought into a person's particular set of consciousnesses, right? So the solar eclipse in a general sense is about culminating, is about coming to a high point, right? Is it about coming to something that's something that is being achieved, something you feel maybe good about, and not always good about, but you actually feel uplifted by somewhere or another. You're actually opening your brain to a larger thing, you know, you feel part of something bigger. The solar eclipse is big, it's huge. It doesn't last very long, a few days, but it's actually very, very important. And it's likely to bring, I suspect that it may bring some kind of discovery or new idea or thoughts. I mean, it's the 10th. It's just before, in this country anyway, we have the final governmental decision about whether we're going to get out of lockdown or not get out of lockdown. A couple of days after that. And the eclipse is still in effect when that happens. So it's like, you know, I wouldn't want to make an actual prediction, but it's actually, it brings us back to lots of different ideas, people's ideas flying about, people from one side or the other, scientists or government in a big sense, right? Vying with each other and pushing that out what they want to say. And it's like, you know, it could go either way. So it's like the whole thing is it's a very, very Gemini thing, a sort of a split possibility. that we've got going. And I see you put up the chart, Rod.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because I can only see the small screen and I can't see this properly.
Sorry about
that. Zoom
that.
configured properly. I can't see the chart very well. I'll have a look at it. Mandy, can you? I can't make it bigger, so I'm just trying to figure out how to do.
Okay, should I move it
I
or?
can't look at the chart. Sorry.
Okay, don't worry. I can move it away. Or you, because you have your chart on the screen, right?
I can't make it bigger. There's something wrong with my Zoom.
That's why. Should we, Mandy? While Sue look at the chart, what's your idea about this solar eclipse?
Yeah, sure. Exactly what Sue said, of course. And then I'm just looking at some of the connections that the eclipse makes. It's of course conjunct Mercury in Gemini, which is currently retrograde. So we might see a reversing of decisions, as Sue was alluding to. You know, we don't know which way it's going to go. You know, there might be a reversing of decisions on terms of sort of, how governments, for example, where it falls in a country chart. As again, as I said, it goes in 10th house for the UK, which is in the actual chart for the eclipse. The actual chart for the eclipse itself.
Yes.
Is a 10th house. It doesn't go into 10th house of the chart. You understand?
Yeah.
But it does. The 10th house, it does say something about government and government decisions and changing their mind. Now, we're ruled by a Gemini in the UK and someone who is famed for changing his mind all the time. So I think Sue is spot on there. You probably will find.
Can't pin him down.
You know, they might reverse a decision about which countries we're allowed to travel to.
We could go to Portugal and now we can't.
Yeah, exactly. So next week we might be able to go to Portugal again, for example, in the UK.
Yeah, that was what I expecting.
And then, and again, really to echo what Sue was saying, the decisions about whether we go fully out of lockdown here and maybe elsewhere, or whether it gets scaled back. Anything could happen. It's decisions. Decisions will be made and decisions will be changed. I think is probably the best thing, the most you can really say. It is square Neptune in Pisces, so we're talking confusion.
That helps a lot.
We're talking about confusion, a lot of confusion. But we're also with Neptune on that eclipse. We're also talking about imagination and creativity as well. Those ideas that Sue was talking about, that gives it a real touch of glamour and imagination and artisticness, really. Yeah. So and then I think there's a trine to from Saturn to the eclipse, although that's slightly wide. But I think the main connections really are that Mercury retrograde, which is really tight, and the square from Neptune.
Yeah. It's very interesting because we're in this country. I realise that not everybody that's listening is necessarily in this country.
Yeah.
But at this moment, I'm in this country. So I wanted to say that in this country, we seem to be governed by somebody who absolutely cannot make up his mind which way to go. He changes this way and that way like a weather vane. So you can't rely on anything. Nothing is reliable. And I think that maybe has something to do with what the solar eclipse is about. You can't pin it down. It won't come down into a clear conclusion. It's just uncertainty all the way around. Very disturbing, actually.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's very interesting because there is another way to look, eclipses is about the solar circle. According to Dr. Benedict Brady's her research, it's always go through solar circle, and every 18 years, the solar eclipse will happen in a nearly kind of a similar place in near the zodiac, and they are kind of belong to the same family. They share the similar flavor. So about this one, we are going. This going to happen in the 10th of June. Well, in the Benedict Brady's book is I think is belong to the solar circle 5N.
Yes.
But on the NASA, on NASA is code 147. So they have different series number anyway. Yeah. And then the first eclipse for this series was happened on the 12th October 1642.
Wow.
And then this solar eclipse, that was the birth of this whole solar circle, was sun,
really? That was
moon,
the date. Okay.
sun, eh?
That was the date. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, 12th October 1642. And then that was a day sun, moon conjunct with Neptune again.
Wow.
Okay. Really?
And so that was very interesting because we have this one square Neptune, and we have the original one, the beginning one was conjunct with Neptune. And I was give a talk last month to our friends Hakan in Turkey with a school, the Sky Wisdom School. And then after that, because I mentioned about this, there's some audience asked me about, is there a pandemic during that time? I say, well, I haven't checked yet, but I bet could be, because during that time is likely, very likely, as I do the research, I remember that was the time about the plague or something was happened. Then when I finished talk, hour after, Hakan sent me a message. He say, yes, it was during the pandemic that time. Because he went back, he was curious. So he went back to do the study about the 1642. He said, yes, that was the time during the plague.
Wow.
And so that was very interesting. I mean,
haven't looked at this. This is interesting, Rob.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's not nothing to say about every time when there's eclipse there's plague. No, it's not like this. But this family may be related to that kind of Neptunian quality. But it could be go different way. Like we say, it could be creative way. It could be confusing way. But in some people, in some way, Neptune could also mean health issue with a virus or toxic or pollution.
Well, Neptune is associated with viruses, isn't it? It's also associated with spreading. Neptune's very generous. Neptune likes to spread things around.
Yes,
yes. Epidemic.
Yeah. It's
so
interesting as well because we are now in a situation, I think, globally that we thought we'd nailed it with coronavirus, but it just keeps mutating, and new mutations are coming, and we've got the Delta mutation it's now called. That means that the virus is on the rise again, and it's exponentially growing at quite an alarming rate, despite many countries vaccinating.
So
we've got more of it. It sounds like, sorry guys, it sounds like we've got more of it, more of this to come, which kind of explains why there's going to be changes of mind and decisions, difficult decisions that will need to be reversed.
So. I think it's not only this moment, because when I met my friend, or like when we're talking about, are we going to meet each other or are we going for holiday? It's always hanging there. There is uncertainty hanging there, up in the air. We couldn't make decisions. Should we do this? Should we do that? Should I book holiday or should I cancel it? It's all about the Neptunian's uncertainty. But I think, I mean, for us, astrology is not only just talk about it's like this, but I think we can apply it, right? What would you apply if you affected by these eclipses on the 19 degree of Gemini and have such a strong the Neptune theme on the chart? What would you do?
Yes, exactly. Yes, it's really difficult, Rod, because it's like, this is the nature of the times. The times are uncertain, unclear. You can't actually pin things down and be absolutely sure about what you're doing and what you're saying, what you're experiencing or what's going to come. It's like, very, very difficult for people, okay? And I suppose I dare to venture, perhaps it was difficult for the Prime Minister as well, maybe. I don't much care, but it's like that is not one position, but you don't have to worry about that. What would you do? All you could do is do what I would advise people when they're in this kind of situation, which is just take one step at a time and don't plan too far ahead. Don't plan to do too many things in the future, because it may be disappointed. It's like I was very struck watching the news today on the television about these poor people coming back from Portugal. To have a holiday and had less than a week, and now they've all got to come back again.
Yes.
Uncertainty.
Yes. Yes.
If you're in that situation, don't book too much that really cannot be changed. Be flexible.
Yeah, Mandy, what's your idea about how to apply this kind of immense Neptunian energy?
I would say I agree, obviously, with Sue. I would also say be careful where you get your information from, because because we have got Mercury retrograde, we have got the Neptune square. Be careful where you get your information from. Check, double check, recheck. All the Mercury retrograde stuff we were talking about. I think in the last podcast and even the one before that.
Yes.
Double check, recheck, and double check. And all the rest of it. Yeah, be careful where you get your information. Don't believe everything you hear, and don't believe everything you're told, especially gossip.
Yeah, I think also. If I can extend it, what Mandy says in a little bit different way is because combined with this Mars Pluto is my personal experience. To be honest, I was wired up and I was very angry, and I was about to say something. To be honest, I said it. I put it up very silly things on Facebook, but 2 minutes after I edited, I just take it down and edit it, because I know if I say that will hurt people around me. But I was so upset, and then I just think again. Do you really want to say that? Because that is kind of a Mercury retrograde too. And because you are not sure what you see or what you heard are truths, but you are already upset about it. Then you make your decision, say something even worse to upset other people, and that is kind of, to be honest, for myself, I can describe it's a very unwise for myself to put things on Facebook and nearly insulting all my friends and my family, kind of. And I take it down very quickly. So yes, that's
very true.
It's very interesting.
Our man is absolutely correct. Be careful of what you undertake, because it may not work out. You've got to be very careful. Do everything with a bit of caution. Take careful steps.
Yes.
You can't really do anything bolder at the moment. Might like to, especially the influence of Mars, but on Pluto. But,
so I have a very quick question, because I'm curious. Okay. Because I know different astrologer see the influence in a different way. So this solar eclipse is on the 19th degree Gemini. So what kind of orb you will give? So who will be affected? Sue and Mandy, what do you think?
Well, me.
I mean, yeah. What's the orb of this solar eclipse?
Affected, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, people with planets, obviously people with planets at that place, round about that place, or people that have also got mutable signs, because Gemini is a mutable sign, of course. People that have got connections to all the signs, instead of, I have to think about them all now. Virgo, or Pisces, or Gemini, or Sagittarius.
Yes.
You've got planets, or angles for that matter, around that degree, then you are likely to be affected by that. Right? So yes, those are the people that most obviously be affected, but those are being also particularly affected by Mercury retrograde, or have also got planets in the position of Mars, Cancer signs. There's a lot of people, a whole raft of people.
So basically, so what you mean is if you have the planet or angle around this mutable sign, and especially near this degree, you're going to be affected. Because let me push you a little bit forward. Is I don't know. I'm sorry to say that, but some audience, they want to know how many degree.
Oh, sorry. What did you just say, Rod? You said it was at 19 degrees?
Yeah, 19 degree. It's not on the 19 Gemini. So how many degree of orb you will give?
Oh, a couple, no more. Personally, I'm a bit of a
personally, yes.
Person. I don't go for things that are too far and wide. Personally, I don't. Right. Okay. So anything between about 17 to 21.
Okay.
Roughly, it's a bit vague, but it's not precise. Astrology is not precise.
Yeah.
Exactly. but those the kind of areas, or at squares to those areas. So if you've
Yep.
got planets at those other signs, at the
Mhm.
neutral signs that are also in square by 90 degrees away from, then there would be planets at those angles too. So not just not just planets that are conjunct. That
Yeah.
includes your angle, your ascendant as well. Yeah.
Mandy, how many degree of orb you will use?
Yeah, the same as Sue, really, to be honest
Okay.
with you. I keep it quite tight, you
Uh-huh.
know, it's couple either side, really.
Yeah.
If that, I mean, one more thing that might be worth mentioning about this eclipse
Yes.
chart.
Yes.
And we've talked a lot about Mars in Mars opposite Pluto, but we also talked a lot about Mars in its sign of Cancer. You know, if you're watching this back, you'll remember we said quite a lot about how Mars in Cancer operates. In the eclipse chart, Mars in Cancer is in the 29th degree. It's in its last degree before
Yes.
Leo. So even though by that time, really, the Mars-Pluto opposition is kind of separating and probably coming out of orb and having much less of a sort of influence, we should still look out for sort of, you know, the intensity. Mars in Cancer, anything that's to do with Mars in Cancer is going to become perhaps a little bit more intense over those couple of days when it's moving signs. So that's another thing to look out for at the time of the eclipse, especially.
Yes.
I do agree with you, actually.
Yes.
I agree, Mandy.
Yeah. So yes, I mean, this is such big topic, and it's one of my interests. Talking about eclipse, I can always talking about eclipse for days. I love it. So what if we do this, because I think it's a bit late, but I mean, the eclipse going to happen in Thursday and on the 19-degree Gemini. If you have any planet around this area, make a note around like a 19-degree mutable sign. Notice what happened around you during this time, especially when it's applied. That would be like I think it will be more intense, and you maybe notice something. And then next week on Friday, we'll come back. We can have a quick review.
We can ask you, then we'd love to hear.
Yeah, we can have a quick review. We have a audience called Faithful One. I remember her since like since we beginning our live stream podcast. She always been here support us. She say she has South Node in 16-degree Gemini. That's mean North Node in 16-degree Sagittarius, and she's not sure about how it's going to affect it. But I think Nodal Axis in the natal chart, what could be indicate, you know, the balance in between our life, or about the about the life changing it, because node is like a threshold. You know, you cross the way, you go forward, backward. So maybe it's some discover new path of life, or review what have you been through.
Can I just
before?
Ask you, was that the North Node? Doesn't really.
For her, it's a South Node in 16-degree Gemini.
Okay. So
that is quite close. That is quite close. Yeah. So maybe we can come back talk about that next week, okay? Because I think next week we will add something in, and because we can do our observation during this time, and then we can review whole eclipse, how it affects us.
Maybe we could put in a word about the nodes, actually.
Yeah.
Sometimes people get a bit unsure about what that really means.
Yeah, definitely. I think, okay, so maybe next week we will talk about this, and we will share our experience, our observation during this eclipse. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank
Fantastic.
you for watching. Thank you, and see you next Friday.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Bye.